Even if dreams can show us the future, this dream did not make sense. Must I never pass a lorry on a clear road? Can a dream show us the future and give us the opportunity of changing it? It is hard to believe. If we can see the future in a dream, then surely the future already exists. If it does, then we are not free to act in the ways we wish to. We are not responsible for our own lives. Before I tell you the dream, I must explain a little about the context. It was the summer of 4 years ago, and I was driving my family back from Italy through the south of France. My son had not yet learned to drive, my daughter was too young, and my wife doesn't drive at all. I had been at the wheel for the best part of 3 weeks. Perhaps I was tired. Perhaps I could think of nothing except cars. We spent the night of the dream in a town called Tain-l'Hermitage. Now I'll tell you the dream. I was sitting in a big, powerful, cream-coloured car, and I was driving at high speed through the country. I was coming to a bend in the road, and in front of me, there was a very large lorry. My foot reached out towards the brake, but it could not find it. I looked down. There was no brake. Worse, my hands held empty air. There was no wheel for them to hold. There were no controls of any kind. Already, we were almost into the back of the lorry. I shouted in fear. Then I heard a calm voice coming from my left, and I turned my head. A stranger was sitting there. He was a cheerful man of about 40. He was wearing an expensive shirt, and on his head he had a red hat. I couldn't understand what he said. He spoke very quickly in French, and my own French is not very good. I didn't, in fact, care what he said. My eyes were on his clean, fat hands, which were holding the wheel. This car had its wheel on the left. He, not I, was in control. We drove safely round the bend. He turned the wheel slightly to place the car in the middle of the road. He was going to pass the lorry. The road stretched straight ahead. It was bright in the sunlight, and it was quite empty. Only one other person was in sight. A woman was sitting outside a small house with white walls, and this house was almost exactly ahead of us. She was sitting by a table, putting some flowers in pots. She wanted to sell us some, and waved them at us. This sight, for some reason, filled me with a terrible fear. The flowers made me think of death, and our final resting place. At this moment, we were level with the lorry, and ready to pass it. But then, the lorry began to turn away from the side of the road towards our car. It appeared that the driver was doing this on purpose. The stranger by my side shouted loudly and tried to move out of the way. There was a terrible noise from the back of the car, and then an explosion. The earth seemed to turn over, and the noise of flames burned in my ears. At that point, I woke up in fear. I was very worried by this dream, and could not sleep again. It seemed to have a message, and I wanted to explain it. Even if dreams can show us the future, this dream did not make sense. Must I never pass a lorry on a clear road? The road to Paris is always filled with very large lorries. Most of them come up from Marseille, and I always have to pass them when the road is clear. I can't drive slowly behind them forever. No, this was not the meaning of the dream. At its heart was some kind of fear. I had to recognize my fear, and then I could forget all about it. I thought about my driving during the last 3 weeks. I tried to remember all the lorries and all the small white houses. I thought of all the cars which were painted cream. I remembered nothing of any great interest. I had imagined that the road in the dream must be in France. It was long, empty, and straight. But then I remembered that we had passed the lorry on the right. So the dream was about a road in England. In England, all cars keep to the left. Immediately, I remembered something. 2 years before this, I was travelling in the north of England. An American and I were making some radio programs. He had brought his car from America, and of course the driver sat on the left side. The brakes and other controls were also on the left, but the colour of his car was not cream. The American was a careless driver, and often passed other cars against my advice. Remember that I was in a better position to see. I was sitting on the right. Once, just after Nottingham, he played chicken. You probably know about chicken. It is a game that is played on the roads. It is becoming more and more popular in America because long journeys are often very dull. You just move your car into the middle of the road and stay there. When another car appears, it comes towards you in the middle of the road. The driver who turns away is the chicken. Quite often, neither driver turns away. I expressed my displeasure at this game in language that the American could not